Let's talk about reviewing someone else's code, or in other words, code review. Code reviews play a significant role, and let me give you my perspective on how to approach them from any level and experience. I'm assuming you're in a situation when you work in a company or you've just joined one. You're looking for some ideas on what to expect from a code review. Also, you may want to find out how to improve your current process because it's stressful, boring, or inefficient. It shouldn't be like that. It's an opportunity to learn, improve, share knowledge, and it's a win for everyone in your team. I'm going to cover all areas for a code review, starting from the beginning. I want to share things I do, I don't do, and how to incorporate them into your daily routine. Let's begin. First, let's determine code review's goal. It's worth mentioning that the code review's goal is going to be different when you work in a company compared to reviewing an open source code. Reviewing open source code has unlimited time available to us, where in the company, the time is a lot more valuable. So apart from good code at the end of every code review, we also want to make sure our next code review is easier, our communication is better, and over time we align our ideas with our team more or less. We still learn from each other and share knowledge every single day. I can guarantee you with time, everything will be much quicker with still high code standards, and the whole code review process becomes business as usual. Again, the code quality stays high, but the process is much quicker. That's our goal. Now let's look at a simple code review example. This view is where your code review most likely starts. It's a list of pull requests with usually just a title. Depending on what software you're going to use for the code review, it may slightly differ, but overall the idea is the same. We're entering first phase, which is a preparation phase. Even before looking at the code, we need to have some form of a context to work with. We should be gathering as much details as possible to the thing we're going to review. This will help us understand the idea behind the code changes and the requirements in general. By having a lot of information, it means we are saving time, asking less questions, and making some accurate suggestions. So the number one is to read the title, description, and any related information. Often additional information can be found in a form of details in a reference ticket number, attached screenshots, quick videos, or step-by-step instructions how to recreate what has changed, or even how to test the code. In this example, the title doesn't give away much details where it says get current exchange rates. We need to click on the title and click on the related issue number to get more details. Now we see a title, fetch and display current USD exchange rates. That's already a bit more information. Let's read the description. We know it says the API should return current USD exchange rates. At minimum, the response must include exchange rate for euro and British pounds. Let's assume now we have all information available to us and we can look at the changed files. The first thing I do is skim through the changes. I usually don't want to comment on anything before looking at various sections. I don't want to jump into immediate conclusions, and I also want to avoid situation where I go file by file, start commenting on the code, and it turns out that the file is not needed at all. I personally look for code coverage first, or more specifically written unit tests. If we look at the tests first, it should tell us the story what is happening. Literally, we should be able to see what information goes in and what is expected to happen. It should also take less time to look at the tests first, work out what's going on, rather than trying to look at the implementation and try to decode that part in your head. Just remember, it's not a rule, it's usually a preferred option. At this point, I can start commenting on anything that stands out, anything that is obvious, doesn't fit, or just needs clarification. After going through all the files, I always do it again and as many times as necessary to make sure I don't miss anything that can slow us down in the future as a team of developers. As you can see, I scrolled down from top to bottom to look for tests and anything that stands out. I've quickly noticed that naming should be better for our endpoint as well as our controller, especially when service class is also called exchange rate service. The lack of code coverage around controller is also worth pointing out, especially that the person who wrote the code is capturing a scenario when API might throw an exception or is simply not available. In successful case, we return response exactly what exchange rate API is providing to us. It might be worth checking their documentation if it actually returns euro and British pounds with those parameters. At this point, I may want to go through the code one or multiple times and try to compare with what's in the requirements. At the same time, I don't want to go beyond requirements because that's not required at this stage. In general, I can see a good balance between standard code practices, code separation, and as long as the code coverage is fixed, I should not be worried about merging this code in. In summary, I want to share from this particular code review things I would be keen to improve. We can make few suggestions and gradually this could be something that your team or company implements. So starting from the beginning, even though we have worked out what the requirements were, it would be better to have more details in title as well as some additional description. In this case, the changes were not that big, but imagine there's a lot more code review. Having a better introduction to your pull request makes everything easier and quicker. For example, instead of title get current exchange rates, we could have something like feature API, reference to the ticket, current exchange rate list for USD. In the description, we could have something like API/exchange rates with some example response. Another thing we would be good to improve is to highlight missing code coverage. We can use GitHub Actions to do that for us or using some external tools as well. We could set it up so that the code cannot be merged until all code coverage is provided. This could save time in the future and going back and forth with some comments. Not a big deal, but still small things add up. Hope you learned something new from this introduction to code review process. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more detailed version. We could analyze smaller or bigger code changes as well, and finding out what's the best way to act accordingly. For example, some steps can be omitted for smaller code changes. However, for much bigger ones, there might be underlying problem we want to quickly identify. Nobody wants to be in a position where massive code change should have been broken down into smaller steps or discussed with your team first. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.